The only people that I know who aren't are people who are unhappy in life and been a big disappointment to them.
I only know people who aren't that way, those who are very sad and let down by life. Laughter. When Dan Blocker was at the top of his game, he had everything that most artists chase their whole lives: stability, respect, music, and a job that made him feel like he would always be there. That's why the ending was so shocking. There was no buildup that made me feel unsafe and no moment that made me think tragedy was about to happen. I just had the feeling that things would soon go back to normal. They never played music. What happened next was sudden and terrible, and it left a quiet that got louder over time. Donald Glover could have become the public face of sadness. In its place, she picked something much less common: disappearance. Her refusal to be a part of the story made their last scene one of the quietest tragedies in Hollywood history. A giant that was born during hard times. Many people like Little Joe because he was cute, funny, and charming, but Hose really won their hearts. Big, shy, and a little naive, but always lovable Cartwright brother had something special. He was soft, humble, and innocent, and he had that puppy dog charm that made it hard not to love him. The actor who played him had the same spirit. When Dan Blocker came into the world, he was already big. He was born on December 10, 1928, in Dallas, Texas, and weighed a crazy 14 pounds. He is still the biggest baby ever born in Bowie County. His life began as a story that everyone had to tell, and that idea never really went away. Ora Shack Blocker and Mary Arizona Blocker moved their family to the small town of O'Donnell, which is about 40 miles south of Leech, when he was still a child. Shack used to be a farmer, but during the Great Depression, he lost everything. He worked hard to get enough money to open a food store. The family lived in rooms behind the shop, and Dan helped out whenever he could. He would often carry customers' food to their cars. Friends would joke that Shack should pay them to hire Dan because the kid was so big and broke things in the store all the time. Not many people knew at the time, but his size would eventually work out to his benefit. Around 800 people lived in O'Donnell, which was a very small town surrounded by vast ranch land. The big event was on Saturday nights, and strangely, Dan was often a part of the show. Other people heard that Dan was ready to test anyone's strength. A section of Main Street would be blocked off, and he would fight anyone who was brave enough to step up. Blocker says he has never lost a fight. He knew exactly what he could do, even when he was a youngster. He weighed about 275 pounds, give or take. That man was so sure of his strength that he once said Floyd Patterson could not beat him if he had just a few months to train and lose some weight. Being sure of yourself wasn't just words. He went to the Texas Military Institute when he was 13 and played linebacker on the football team in there. He was so good that Sul Music Ross State University gave him a grant. He planned to study English and keep playing football there. He was 6 feet 3 inches and almost 300 pounds when he was 18. He would get bigger over time. But something unexpected happened that made everything different. The theater club at school needed someone strong to move heavy fake props for a play called Arsenic and Old Lace. Dan was a great fit for the job. He was then offered a small part as Teddy Brewster, the strange nephew of the play's main character. His life changed in that one moment on stage. He was totally taken in by the response from the crowd, the energy, and the sense of being seen. He changed his major from English to acting and hasn't looked back since. He turned down offers to play professional football after high school and went east to follow a dream he didn't even know he had. With summer stock work and music lessons, he slowly got better at what he did until he got a small part on Broadway in King Lear. It was the beginning of something bigger, but the road would go in a different direction than he had planned. During the Korean War in late 1950, Dan Blocker was forced to join the U.S. Army. The first 9 months of his training were at Fort Polk in Louisiana, and the last 9 months were in Sapporo, Japan. He was sent to Korea to work with Company FN of the 179th Infantry Regiment of the 45th Infantry Division. He had worked his way up to sergeant by the time his service was over. His unit was based near the Jamestown line, close to Chwon, which is now in North Korea. In March, they got caught up in a fierce battle at a place known as Outpost Erie. On May 25, their patrol walked right into a communist trap that was set up deep behind enemy lines. America decided to fight even though they were outnumbered and trapped. Blocker stayed in place for more than 4 hours, firing back at machine guns, mortars, and small arms while one man was hurt and trapped under heavy fire. The enemy was kept away by his efforts, music, but the wounded soldier did not make it. There was more fighting. From the middle of June to the end of the month, his unit fought at Erie, Old Baldy, and Porkchop Hill before taking over defense of Hill 223. They were on the front lines for 209 days in a row before they were finally pulled back in July. Blocker, who was working as first sergeant, ended up in the hospital because of wounds he got in battle. People in his unit said he saved their lives, and he was sent home in August 1952. After the fact, Gordon Apts, one of the guys who worked for him, spoke highly of Sergeant Blocker. He said he was strong, athletic, loud in a good way, friendly to everyone, and a built-in boss. Apts said Blocker was strong enough to crush a beer can in 2 fingers and still have time to watch out for every man he was in charge of. In the same year, Dan got married to Dolphia Blocker. He went back to college and got a master's degree in theater arts. He felt more responsible after getting married. Soon after, he got a job teaching English and drama at a high school in Sonora, Texas. He had to do this because his family was growing, with twin girls Deborah Lee and Dana Lynn and sons David and Dirk. He taught 6th grade in New Mexico after that. By moving him a little farther west with each step, she led him softly to the life he was always meant to live. Dan Blocker was Hollywood's most confused star. He settled down in married life with the same calmness he brought to everything else. He loved being a teacher and being around kids. He also loved sharing his love of language and playing with them. It's possible that he changed some people's lives along the way and never knew it. Everyone who knew him seemed to agree on one thing. Dan cared a lot. His temper could get out of hand, but he was also quick to say sorry and accept when he was wrong. Moving his family to California wasn't a way for him to get famous or get more attention. The plan was easy to understand and useful. Dan went to UCLA to get his PhD in theater arts, but he kept teaching while he was there. He still loved acting, but it wasn't the most important thing in his life yet. In the middle of the 1950s, things started to change when he started trying out for TV parts to make extra money. He fit right in because he was big and strong, and westerns were popular at the time. He kept getting small parts, which helped him gain experience in front of the camera. Stan Kubrick even tried to cast him in Dr. Strangelove around this time, after Peter Sears dropped out of the role of Major T.J. King Kong, but Blocker's agent turned down the script, and the part went to Slim Pickens instead. It was one of those missed chances that only makes sense now that it's too late. Blocker played a character named the Goon in a 1957 Three Stooges short film called Outer Space Jitters. He was billed as Don Blocker. In the same year, he played a bartender in an episode of Sheriff of Coochies. It all made sense. He thought about how much he loved acting when he was back on set and playing different roles. From then on, the work kept coming in. He was in hit TV shows like Gunsmoke, The Rifleman, Have Gun Will Travel, and Maverick, where he could show off his natural sense of humor. In 1958, he was in Walt Disney's Zorro and got a steady part on Cimarron City, a show that didn't last long. The show didn't last long, and it must have felt like another failure at the time. But it was really the break he didn't know he needed. When they called it off, he was free to play the part that would define his life. Everything changed when director David Dort picked him to play Hose Cartwright on Bonanza. After putting off getting his PhD, Dan became an actress full-time, mostly because the part required him to give it his all. It was worth it. He was the show's heartbeat and the steady soul that held the music Cartwright family together. Little Joe was the show's hero. It's strange that Bonanza didn't become a hit right away. When it first aired, it got such low numbers that NBC almost ended it after just 1 season. One of the problems was that it had to fight with Perry Mason on Saturday nights. The show didn't even make it into the music top 30 in its first year. The network, though. After the fact, NBC official Thomas Sarnoff said that the show was going to be canceled after 13 episodes because it cost too much to make. It cost about $15,000 an episode to film Bonanza in color in the first year. That was a lot of money at the time. Sarnoff stepped in and said he could keep the cost of the production down, which he did. After that, Bonanza lived and then blew up, becoming one of the most famous TV shows of all time, with Dan Blocker's Hose at the center of it all. Something clicked when America met Hose Cartwright on Bonanza. This huge man, 6 feet 4 inches and over 300 pounds, looked like he had stepped out of a story. Hose wasn't a scary giant, though. He was soft, awkward, funny, and always kind. He tripped over his words. He got himself into trouble. People fell in love with him right away because he wore his heart on his sleeve. Hose was a fun play on the word horse, which means big as a horse in a country way. It fit just right. But what really made the deal was how well Dan Blocker fit into the part. A lot of fans didn't think of Hose Cartwright as a figure. He thought he was a real person. That's where the big conflict starts. In real life, Dan Blocker was not at all the slow and simple-minded ranch hand he played on TV. He had a master's degree in acting, which shows how smart he was. He was a school teacher before he became famous as an actor. He was deep religious as a Free Methodist and a political progressive. He was also intelligent and well-read. In fact, he backed Eugene McCarthy and other left causes. The man behind the scenes was smart, thoughtful, and interested in learning new things. Even though they were different, Blocker and Hose had one huge thing in common: a strong kindness. Blocker really thought that people should be nice, fair, and stand up for what's right. Everything he brought to Hose was shaped by that idea. Kids, music, felt it right away. Their parents did too. Hose never felt like the music was trying to trick.